The meeting is called to order at 6:30 p.m. Monday, July 31st, 2017. This meeting is being recorded. Move to accept the minutes of last week's meeting, July 24th.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of last week are accepted. Okay, announcements. We have this Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Nobody wants to miss this. The Library Board of Trustees will be meeting at the library. And Saturday morning from 7 a.m. until 10 a.m. at the Community Center, the monthly community breakfast hosted by the Recreation Committee and the Senior Citizens Club. Any other announcements about things coming up in the next week or so? Any meetings or anything?
August 13th is the Carnival Day that Rec Department's put on.
August 13th, that's a Saturday?
Right.
Okay. Sunday, August 13th, okay. All right, before we go to old business, Tom, we have a public comment section that's on at the very end of the meeting. Did you want? Believe it or not, no, I am not. But what I was about to say is, you're welcome to wait until the end of the meeting to speak, or if you'd like, we'll give you the floor right now.
That would work.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been following the progress or non-progress of getting ordinances revised in the town. And if you look at your website, every ordinance you have on there is unenforceable in the manner that you have it written. I mean, plain and simple. Yeah, oh, that's mine. Look at these, I can collect them back at the end.
Thank you.
Your noise ordinance you have posted from 1994, however, you have a current ordinance that goes back to 2007. What's interesting about this ordinance is that it's written in the proper fashion so that it can be enforceable, as opposed to every one of the other ordinances that you have posted. Key features of this are, one, it has a purpose and authority. It refers back to the RSA. Sometimes in reviewing the past meetings, it appears that the board would like to make it up as they go along. Any ordinance needs to reference a state law. Definitions, you need to define what you're talking about in the ordinance. Where does it apply? Your zoning districts, okay? The time restrictions. If you would have had this and been referencing this, your entire Jake break conversation need not have ever happened because it's included in your ordinance from 2007 when it talks about trucks downshifting and using transmission to brake, okay? You also have exemptions, okay? Now, violations and penalties. You have nothing in your ordinances, current ordinances, that state out what is the violation, what is the penalty. Then you have the severability clause, and that's what constitutes an ordinance, okay? Now I bring this up because you're working on the nuisance ordinance, and it appears you're trying to reinvent the wheel once again. The key thing is, think about who enforces the noise ordinance. It's not the select board. It's the police department. Okay? Who's going to enforce your nuisance ordinance or your junk ordinance?
The police department.
It's going to be the police department. You had a couple of gentlemen come in here and ask the board, well, don't you drive around and see the stuff? Of course you don't. You have the police department to do that. Yep. You need to meet with the police chief and say, geez, chief, the board would like to take up with you as part of your regular duties the enforcement of town ordinances. Now, what happens? If it's a junk pile or whatever, it's a $100 fine. The ticket gets written. The key thing is the person who's being complained against gets a chance to go before the judge. Not a board of selectmen, not a bunch of yahoos. They get to go to a judge and plead their case. And what's going to happen? The police chief's going to take out the well-written ordinance that references the state law and the penalty, and he's going to have a picture of the offensive pile of shit in someone's yard. He's going to say, look, Your Honor, this violates the ordinance. doesn't come before the select board. Why you guys are getting involved in this minutia when you should be involved in the art of crafting a legal ordinance? And it doesn't mean changing all the wording. It works if you just take one from another town. Okay? You go through this. No, I got the floor. I'm speaking to the chair. Go back to the back. You have the town of Hampton nuisance ordinance. Okay? What's valuable about this? You know it's been brought to court. You know it's passed the smell test. Okay, the town of Hampton has had to have this. You can just give them a call. Have you ever had to have your nuisance ordinance enforced? Yes. Have you ever lost? Probably no. Okay, it doesn't matter. You don't have to customize it for the town. All you have to do is match the RSA and give yourself the opportunity to bring the offender to court. And it's not you guys that prosecute. Dave is our prosecutor. He does it every day. So who do we have that knows how to write an ordinance anymore? Carol Ogilvy. You're employing her at the planning board level. Okay, what you're dealing with when you're dealing with junkyards, junkie yards, and nuisances is essentially a planning board issue. Yet I've gone to the planning board for 3 years straight and asked them to take these things up, and they never have they? No.
Well, not yet.
Well, not yet. We're down to 4 or 5 years. We'll help if we think about it a little bit more. Okay. Here's a guide to district court enforcement of local ordinances and codes. All it says is just write the ticket. Go to court. Show the judge your ordinance. Show him your picture. So what happens when we have ordinances you can't enforce? Okay. Bring you to the junkyard RSA. Okay. The junkyard RSA obligates the town to license junkyards. It's your obligation. It has been since 1993, I think. Since 65, I'm sorry. Since 1965, New Hampshire, all municipalities in New Hampshire have had the responsibility to license junkyards at the local level. It's RSA Chapter 236. What's interesting about this responsibility is, you go back to the last page, next to the last paragraph. If the local governing body does not deal with complaints arising from either junkyards or junkie yards, either the Attorney General or affected private citizens may proceed to Superior Court and seek injunctive relief. Okay? That means you go to Superior Court, you ask for the form, you say, "Dear Judge, my name is Tom Mattson. I'm considering buying property up on Richmond Road."
Westfield.
Richmond. And I can't buy the property with that pile of shit sitting there. And that's all it takes. Okay, now you're the defendant. Instead of prosecuting it, town has to go to trial and say, "Judge, I don't know, we just fucked up. We didn't get the ordinance in place." Okay? And now it's forced upon you. That's what's going to happen, because I'll tell you, I heard this gentleman and his friend come in and complain about the trashy situation. You know about Gary Lang's. You know about the Peltos, at which we're subsidizing that with tax money. Where do you think Paiu's house went when they tore it down?
Westfield Road.
Yeah, Cermakers. Okay, have you ever Google mapped the property? You know, Hunter owns the property on the bend of the lake down there, of the river, where there's 5 abandoned cars there, right near. Isn't that junkyard in your backyard?
No, it's down the road a little bit.
But right between South Street and North Main Street.
Yeah, there's
Got to
a bunch
have
of
24 cars there.
Yeah,
Easy. Everybody knows about it.
yeah.
But the town has an obligation to license junkyards. That means every year, once a year, April 1st, you have to relicense it. So you need to get these mechanisms in place. The only person I know that's going to be able to do it for you is Carol Ogilvy. Okay, so I highly recommend You stop this homegrown effort and put it in the hands of a professional. Because I'm going to talk to Joel, and I'm going to talk to those people affected by this and say, look, we've got to go to court to force the town to do it. I'd rather see you do it on your own like big boys. The other thing I came to speak to you about is Troy Mills. I mean, despite representing the town of Troy at bankruptcy, I don't know why I haven't been invited to join the new Troy redevelopment group. But are you planning on forming a nonprofit agency? Because that's what the former twos were.
Yes.
So you're going to form a nonprofit agency with the goal of what?
Not form one, because the old one still exists. It was not discharged in bankruptcy.
Okay.
So it exists, but at the moment nobody is in it because all of the appointments expired in March of 2016.
And what do you want them to be doing?
I can't answer that because I don't know. What I want is for the Troy Redevelopment Group and whoever is on it to find a way to get the mill, either make the building go away and so we can do something with the land, or get the mill somehow back on the tax rolls.
So you don't have a fucking clue what's been going on then, right?
What's been going on?
Right, for the past, since bankruptcy.
No.
Okay. And I gotta wonder why you just don't pick up the phone and fucking call, okay? I've been in touch with the state of New Hampshire and a group of investors for the past 12 months on a monthly basis, going back and forth on how to obtain that property. It is abandoned. You understand? Nobody owns it. The only thing that's owned is a $600,000 bill by the state of New Hampshire for cleaning up the mess. Okay? They can't just step away from it. So, it's going to be sold at pennies on the dollar. Okay? And right now there are active negotiations on for the sale of the mill. My question to you is the formation of the Troy Redevelopment Group going to be helping that at all? Or is it going to be interfering? Because I don't think you have any claim to anything going on in that mill. That's all been washed by bankruptcy court.
No, there was not.
Yes, it was.
Well, that's not what we're being told by the attorneys who are looking into it.
And what are they telling you?
The bankruptcy petition was dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
So the bankruptcy never took place.
Right.
So the Troy Redevelopment Group was not dissolved, although all of the appointments have since expired. It's sitting there. It is the property of the Troy Redevelopment Group. There just aren't any people in the Troy Redevelopment Group.
No, that's really debatable. You'd need to talk to the state about that because we got a second appraisal going on in there.
Yep.
Trying to move the purchase and sale agreement for.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've got something different going on, let me know.
We know. Do you want to be on the Troy Redevelopment Group?
Like I said, it doesn't make any reason why I wasn't asked, does it?
We haven't asked anybody yet. Right now we got two people.
That's a little bit contrary to what your minutes say, but I'll buy that apology.
We haven't asked anybody formally, anybody besides the people that were already on the TRG. We asked them if they still wanted to be on it. We have also asked them to put in letters of resignation. Now, I just talked to Dick Thaxton last Thursday,
Yeah.
and he said that he didn't want to be on it because that whole, I don't know what the insurance policy is, but that protects the people from being sued,
Mm-hmm.
that hasn't been paid.
Right.
And he also said that the TRG has about $7,000
In
in
the
their
bank.
account.
Yeah.
And nobody has basically access to it right now except for Michael Stedman. I've been trying to get a hold of Michael Stedman, and so has several other people. He has not called back. So I asked Dick Thaxton if he can get a hold of him, see how much of that insurance is going to be, and he hasn't got back to me yet.
In their articles of agreement will be a clause as to what happens at their dissolution or at their bankruptcy, and that's how the money gets dispersed.
Right. But the issue of the resignations is now moot.
Right.
Because we found out that their appointments expired a year and a half ago.
Right.
So what I mean, how do you plan? Like right now, if you want the mill, you can simply make a offer for it. If you want the town to have the mill, make an offer. It's very cheap, and that solves all of this, running around.
Well, we were told that the TRG still exists, that entity still exists, and it goes back because nothing happened with the,
Why did they go bankrupt?
they decided to do that, wasn't it?
No, because they
To
didn't
wipe
have
out
the
the
money
debt.
to keep the mill operating. So if you form a new TRG, what has happened that they're gonna generate money as opposed to the old one? Because you still gotta pay the insurance, you still gotta pay the lights, okay?
Right.
So how are you gonna make money to keep it going?
Well, right now, DocuShred is in there, and they're spending how much money?
2,500 a month.
And it wasn't enough to keep the old one going. It's exact, what has changed? Nothing has changed.
Right.
And they didn't generate enough money. Now you had 4 or 5 professionals on there. That new development, what's changed that's gonna make it generate money to keep it going? If it falls in the town's hands, you're gonna end up putting taxpayer money towards it again. You let it go through the natural market process. This is just like what goes on all the time in foreclosures and everything else out there. Let the market handle it. You know, it's Keynesian economics. You
We
know,
also were
It's
approached
supposed-
by somebody, I can't remember the name, that was gonna do that coffee
Send me
distribution.
the information. I'll be more than happy to put them in touch with the proper people to make an offer to.
Okay. You said that I think you're a little annoyed that we haven't called you and you've been working with somebody on this, but we didn't know you were working on this.
It
So
doesn't
there was
matter.
no reason for us to call.
It doesn't matter if I'm the one that's for 4 years been in the middle of this shit. You
Yeah.
want to know what's going on with it. All you gotta do is freaking ask.
All right.
But once again, we didn't ask anybody right now. We had 2 people volunteer, which was Herb and Ben Drug, that said that they would like to be on it. The new TRG. As far as I'm concerned, we have yet to ask anybody else.
What
or
would be your
anyone.
goal? Do you have an attainable goal?
Right now, it was a matter of getting the people together and sitting down with the selectmen and finding out what the goal was gonna be and trying to get it back onto the tax roll or sold or whatever, but you have
Disposed of.
Disposed of, having everybody involved that wanted to be involved.
That's the process that's going on. Like I said, we're having the second appraisal go on. Although I have to go in and give a tour for the appraiser. But, you know, there's ongoing talks, there's active parties. I don't think you're gonna enhance any of that by saying all of a sudden, hey, the town of Troy has a group that wants to be involved in your business. Because it's no longer our business. We
Well-
don't have any legal claim to it.
The only reason we're doing this is because we found out that the bankruptcy didn't go through.
Okay, do what you want with
And I
it.
mean, the decision to set up the original TRG, I don't know how many
The
decades
state
back
of New
that.
Hampshire
Yeah.
holds a $600,000 note on that property, whether it's owned or abandoned.
Right.
They still want $600,000. That's the nut that we've been trying to crack for 12 months. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good evening, guys.
Good night, Tom.
Tone your stuff. Come back.
You could leave that if you want.
No worries.
So long. Okay, going on to old business. Complaint on Richmond Road waiting on the nuisance ordinance.
Okay, I don't know that we want to go into that right now, do we?
Well, I have something
Done.
farther down here that addresses some of the things that Tom just mentioned.
Okay, and I have a comment to make on,
Right now?
no, wait till you.
Oh, okay. All right, so
Okay.
we'll skip that.
Okay.
The Ridley map, Attorney Hopkins Smith.
Oh, nothing.
Nothing further?
Haven't
Okay.
heard from him yet.
All right, job descriptions?
You said you were gonna get a estimate from the person.
I said when I get an email from her, I'll contact, because I don't know her name,
Okay,
and I haven't received anything in the last week.
so, alright.
Okay, forensic audit. Melissa?
He's supposed to come in this week, but I
Okay.
haven't heard anything from him, so.
All right, CDC no smoking policy, waiting on the signs.
We got the signs, 10 of them.
Good.
They look nice, and Bob Norton asked where to put them. I said, well, put them along the fence where the other ones are. Put them out on the front sign, and anywhere else. Can we put a sign on the telephone poles? Or is that a no-go?
No.
It's a no-go unless we ask permission. We can ask permission.
Okay, because it was mentioned that we wanted to put it on the entranceway right out front. So
We can put it on one of those,
standalone
Fence,
signs,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that was one of the things, and then on the other side where the dam is,
Mhm.
because people come in from that side
Right.
as well, so we're well, Bob,
Right.
not where we, but is starting to been putting them on.
So
We got
10's
them.
good.
Pardon me? 10
10 is good.
Yes, 10's
Okay.
good.
All right.
And no cost, they were free.
Okay, good. Next item, this is a good one. The second driveway on School Street. We sent the letter to the wrong person. The address is not 25 School Street, it's 29. So the woman received the letter, and she called here all confused why she's getting this letter. I only got one driveway. So Alissa called her, after we checked it out, Alissa called her back and apologized profusely. And there's a letter here for all of us to sign tonight going to the owner of 29 School Street.
So
who
we're
has the
starting
two
over.
driveways.
So who said it was 25 School Street?
You did.
I don't know.
I didn't have
I don't
an
know who
ad-
said that.
I didn't have an actual address. I just knew it was one that was right before the church.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I didn't even know what this, I used to live on 10 School Street. So I know that address, but all the other ones I
Okay.
don't know.
All right. Well, that's in the, we're a week behind where we would have been. No
Okay.
big deal. Okay. Fundraiser.
Check that
Nothing
off.
on that. Troy Redevelopment Group.
Check that off.
Okay. Complaint letter on Brook Street. That's old. Okay. Time Board and Bay. Anything new on that?
Yes, in fact there is. I found we are going with a brand new sign.
With what?
A brand new
Oh,
sign.
okay.
What we're going to do is donate that one to the Historical Society, maybe. We looked at it. We found a calligrapher to do all the writing and everything. Ralph is making a new board because it's checked. And if we put all this money into this old sign, it's not going to last that long anyway. So the festivals committee is going to pay for any money, the calligrapher, the wood. Ralph's donating his time. And he will put the sign together, and then the calligrapher will decide what we're going to put on it exactly. And we're done. We'll have a new sign and we'll put it out front. How's that?
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're done.
Okay, now the next couple of items, West Hill Road complaint and Central Square complaint. I want to save those for new business because we're going to lump that in with this building inspector code enforcement officer topic. Okay, Amnesty Day deadline, September. Well, we're not there yet, so we're still.
Can I, on the Amnesty Day,
Yeah.
I was wondering, do you think we should word it different than Amnesty Day so people understand it a little bit better? If
People
you say
wouldn't-
Amnesty Day to somebody,
They don't understand free by amnesty.
I don't know. You know, the library
you know
does.
what I'm saying? Like free,
Yeah.
throw your trash away free at the town landfill instead of Amnesty Day.
Well,
it might
we-
not sink in as easy.
When we say Amnesty Day, we'd throw in an explanation with it, but we're looking for just something short. You know, the library
Right,
does
yeah.
this with fines for overdue books. Every couple of years, they'll say, we're gonna have an amnesty week or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring in your overdue books that you've been afraid to bring them back because you didn't wanna pay the fine, and it's
Yeah.
building up,
Yeah.
bring them back and it's amnesty.
Well, I think that's a great idea, that the Amnesty Day.
Yeah.
That's a big
All right.
plus.
Yeah, but I don't think, I don't have a problem with calling it Amnesty Day, provided
Okay,
we
yeah.
explain what it is. Yeah.
Right.
Right,
And we will do
and
that
what
in
exactly-
excruciating detail.
right, and this is all the things that they
Okay.
can bring. not
Unless you got a better name for it.
I couldn't think of one.
And if
Free
it-
day,
if-
free
and if
day
it's-
at the dump.
Well, and if it's got more than 4 words in it, it's too long.
Whatever works. I mean, that's what,
All right.
you know, it's, be creative as you like, I would say.
Okay.
You know, whatever, what is it, you know, what's the easiest to understand for everybody to.
And as long as they abide by the present rules. It
Right.
cannot be anything. It has to be what is
No
only
radioactive
accepted.
material or anything.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Giorgiani Trust Fund hearing date is the 28th of September. Curtis,
Yes.
since you spend more time over there than the rest of us do, could you handle the setup of that? And by setup, I'm not thinking of the chairs so much. I'm thinking of a computer with the screen and the overhead projector to take the place of a whiteboard. Remember what Aaron talked about,
Yeah.
whiteboard, and we said we would use that. And I'm sure you've used that equipment over there, or you know somebody who has.
Yes.
So can you, and I know that as a military instructor, you'll make sure it works before we get there.
Yes.
Okay. So will you handle that?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Okay, Fitzwilliam Road complaint, we'll save that until we get into this. I'm going to save building inspector till the end here. Additional highway block grant, SB 38. We're getting an additional $47,471.58. from the state to use for highway or bridge maintenance. We don't know the details on it yet. All we know is what we've read in the Keene Sentinel. I've read the bill, and it doesn't really give a lot of detail about the mechanics of how this is going to work. We've been in touch with DRA, and we're waiting for a call back from them to find out what we have to do to get the money, when we can expect the money. What we do know, and again, everything I'm saying now is based on what I've read in the Keene Sentinel, the money cannot be used for projects for which we have already appropriated money. So if we had passed the warrant article to pave West Hill Road, for example, we could not use this toward West Hill Road because it would already be appropriated. But for something that was not appropriated, we can use it. And I don't know where we would want to. It's kind of a small amount of money for paving, but it doesn't have to be for paving. It can be for any road or bridge project for which money was not already appropriated. So when we hear back from DRA, we know what kind of a time frame we're working with. The article said that the money was non-lapsing, which I believe means that we don't have a fast deadline by which we have to spend it.
Right, so we could put it towards the paving next year of West Hill
I
Road.
believe we can, but we're going to wait until we get the official. Right now, everything we've heard is unofficial.
Okay,
The only thing we know for certain is that the bill passed and was signed by the governor.
okay. Let's move on.
All right.
Geese waste.
Geese waste. Now, Deb, we've got you on for 6:45, which was 10 minutes
That's
ago.
okay.
It's next on new business anyway, so why don't you tell us what's on your mind?
The beach down at the rec center,
Mm-hmm.
who cleans that?
My best guess is nobody.
Can we get somebody to clean it?
I think so.
Because the geese are really doing
Yeah.
a number down there.
Um,
And it's really not healthy for the kids to be down there.
Yeah, well, it's town property, so the Department of Public Works has the ultimate responsibility for it. Has this been a problem in the past?
Yeah, it's getting bad.
And how was it cleaned up in the past?
It's getting to the
Never
point
was.
where the kids are tracking it inside the
Yeah.
rec center now.
Or how has it been cleaned up in prior years?
It never was.
It was not, but
Never.
is it worse this year?
It's just, we have a geese problem down there.
I think your rec center's getting used more now than it had been.
So it's not a new problem, it's just that more people are noticing it.
I think it's more evident now that more people.
Well, today
More
Ron
geese
and
around than
I,
there ever was too, in the old days.
Ron and I went around with little toy shovels picking up what we could. And it really needs to be cleaned by somebody.
Okay, but the problem is, if that's who we assign it to, there's only one person working now.
Well, if we call Gary, tell him what needs to be done, that doesn't mean he has to go down there and do it. Maybe, and I don't know this to be the case, but maybe they have people on call, contractors who do this type of thing.
Yeah, they have a line item for that.
Hmm?
They have a line item for subcontracted.
Yeah, labor, contracted labor.
Right. In their budget, so.
Can I ask a question just because my brain's...
Sure.
How often do you think it needs to be done? Probably every day until we get rid of the geese.
So
Well-
if you did it at night, it wouldn't be okay for the next day?
No, because as soon as we all leave, the geese come right back and do whatever they gotta do right there on the beach.
How big is the beach? Square footage?
I'm not good at that stuff.
Probably about 75 feet going across.
All right.
I'd be safe to say.
Too big to get like a roll of tar paper and put it out there? To cover, what I'm thinking is it feasible to cover the beach at night? Is it small
The
enough?
geese are even coming up now to the center.
Yeah.
I had, matter of fact, Bob's got a video of me chasing one of them out of the skate park
Right.
because he was caught in there. And I had to clean up his mess.
I think a good thing would be contact Fish and Game for some geese deterrent to start with.
Well, now, I talked to Jimmy about that a while ago, and to see if there was anything we can do, simply because when they closed the beach, I wanted to know if we could prevent this. And
If you could what?
prevent.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so he had talked about the noisemakers that they use to deter the birds to begin with. And after a while, they just become accustomed and say, you know, come on boys, let's go. nothing that's going to scare us. So that only lasts a certain period of time.
When's hunting season?
They're also, no, they're a protected species. No, that
The
won't.
geese aren't protected, and
There was 32
They are.
down there.
no, they're not. Geese are such a nuisance, they have
Yeah, they're a nuisance bird.
they've extended the goose hunting season by like 2 extra months. The geese
Okay, now I thought Jimmy told me they're protected.
No. So I would
Not
call,
in
He may have told you
They're
that.
not in season now.
so let me say, Call Fishing Game, they have, I know firsthand, they have ways to solve that problem or assist with, maybe provide the rec department or Jimmy with
Yeah.
the appropriate stuff to solve that
All right,
problem.
so we have 2 separate issues here. One is, we gotta find a way to clean up the mess. Other is, we gotta find a way to prevent the mess. So, Alissa, can you contact Fish and Game? And, find out, what do we need to do to get rid of the geese? What can we do? And they may know of other towns that have had similar problems and how they've dealt with it. The other problem is, how do we clean it? This is gonna be a daily cleanup, that's gonna
Do
be
we
very
have a
expensive.
York rake that we could tow behind a tractor?
A what?
A York rake?
I don't know.
It's a rake that has the fingers that come down, so you can
Yeah.
pull all the
I
stuff.
don't know what they have.
Like they do at Hampton Beach,
Yeah.
just drag a rig.
Um,
Do you have a summer youth employment program?
No.
No,
No, okay.
We sometimes have convict labor.
we aren't even lucky enough to get that anymore.
Really? Because we haven't asked or because it's not
Right.
available?
Oh, no, I've asked.
All right.
Do you have a four-wheeler? I mean, you can go a chain link fence.
Yeah.
out there.
What do they use to groom the ball fields?
There's a tractor that,
With something like a chain link
Coco
thing you
left
drag
down
behind
there.
it?
Well, they have a fence down there, but we didn't wanna use it because then that poop is gonna get now spread it across
Yeah,
down the ball field,
Right.
and we didn't wanna do that. So Bob did mention before, I came up here, to use a York rake to pull behind the tractor that's down there,
The tractor that's down at,
the same there right now.
okay.
It's a small little,
What does it
riding
cost?
tractor. York rake,
York rake.
you can find them used for a couple $100.
All right.
I have one, but mine's one that constantly sits on the ground. It's not one that you lift up off the ground.
Alright.
It's made for a 3-point hitch.
All right.
And that tractor down there doesn't have a 3-point hitch, because I told Bob, I said, well, we can bring this down.
All right.
And,
Can you look into finding one?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Then I move that we authorize Curtis to purchase what do you call it?
A York rake?
A York rake to use at the community, at the recreation area, and to go up to $300. Will that be enough?
Just give me a quick second. Let me look it up.
All right.
Pooper scooper.
We had the little plastic shovels.
So
Yeah,
if
the
we-
campers pick it all up, yeah.
So if we got one that's like brand new, I
Yeah.
don't know if you can see this, but a 48-inch tow behind landscape rake is what
Yeah.
they call them too. $600.
All right.
That's a 3-point hitch type, 274. But you got to have the contraption on the back of the 4-wheeler or the tractor to actually use that to lift it up.
And do we have that on the one down there?
We do not.
Okay.
So this one here, you see the lever on the top.
Yeah.
That's what you actually just pull the lever and it lifts up the tines
Right.
and then the wheels, so then you can tow it behind.
Okay.
Then you pull it back down and then it puts the tines down and lifts the wheels
Gotcha.
up.
All right. And you can do that while controlling the tractor, or do you have to get out and do it?
You set it once you're
Yeah.
down on the beach, and then you just keep going back and
Okay.
forth or whatever, and then when you're done, you lift it up,
Gotcha.
so you don't
Okay.
tear up the grass or
All right.
anything else that you
And
got.
that one there, that's $719.
Yeah.
Okay, can we find a used one? Do we have to have a new
Well,
one?
that's what Curtis mentioned earlier.
Right,
that
you can find them on
find-
Craigslist, and I just haven't,
Okay. Would you have time to do that?
well, that's the other thing, I'm leaving for military again this Sunday for 10 days,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna be missing the next 2 meetings.
All right.
So, this week I'm here,
Well, if you find something, you can
just get
let
Alyssa
Alyssa know.
Alright,
All right.
Why don't we just table
Or,
it until
yeah.
we see if.
Or Deb, if you want to look for something or find somebody else in the rec committee to look for something.
I'm always on Craigslist.
I can't hear you.
I'm always on Craigslist.
Oh, okay. If you check with Curtis to see what it is we're looking for, And I'll change the motion. I move that we authorize the rec committee to spend up to $300 on a York rake. And that'll be out of town money. We'll come up with that. If you come up with something that's more than that, then it'll have to come back to us to discuss.
Okay.
So that motion's on the table.
I second it.
What?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anything else on that topic?
Will someone get in touch with Fish and Game, see if they can
Yeah,
relocate
well,
those things?
well, that's the other half of that's the half of the problem that deals with prevention for the future. But this will be something that,
We counted 32 down there the other day.
How do you
gee,
become
if we could kill 32 geese, and then maybe that'll alleviate part of the welfare issue.
And have a goose
We
supper?
could feed them to. Well, okay.
Or
Any-
we could sell them and pay for the rake.
Yeah,
Good idea.
that could be. Yeah. Okay. Anything further on the goose issue?
We're good.
Okay. Bruce Summers quote.
It's in the folder, that yellow folder right there.
Okay, please find the quote for the move to Office 365, which includes 3 licenses for the Selectmen. Does that mean 3 email addresses or something? Is that, we want more than 3?
Plus the regular ones that we had. He gave us a quote before,
Okay.
and then you wanted the other 3.
$1,942.50. That seems a bit high just for 3 email addresses.
No, that's for all of them. Switching everybody over.
Okay, so this includes Office 365, which is a monthly thing. So that's $137.50. Okay, Network Technician Remote to configure it, configure all users, etc. That's $760. And then Network Technician On-Site, test all users at portaloffice.com, remove current Office products from 8 PCs, install Office 365 onto 8 PCs. That includes Office, Skype, OneDrive, and more. Import email for all users if needed, install onto other devices, etc. Training, and that's $1,045. Okay, so now it doesn't seem like that much. Okay, $1,942.50. Move to accept that quote and pay the bill.
Is this something we presently have, or is this something new?
Well, this is upgrading the 8 computers in Town Hall to Office 365.
Oh,
And
okay.
expanding the email capability. One of the goals here is that the Selectmen will have email addresses tied to the Troy, New Hampshire server instead of using our own private emails.
Oh, okay, that's good.
See, right now, every time I do anything town business using my private email, I copy Alissa so that it's on the server
On the
here.
main.
Yeah, so that if anybody ever wants to slap a subpoena on us, I don't have to turn over my computer at home.
Right, okay.
But if we all go to the Troy, New Hampshire email tied to the town website, and it wouldn't be just us, it would also be various departments in
Right.
town, then everything goes through that server. So there's
And
a
it's
record
automatically
of,
there.
you could go ahead and answer your email at home, but it's going to be, there'll be a record of it here.
Okay. Okay,
And we really need to do that.
yeah, I agree.
Okay. So I'm still waiting on a second.
Second,
Okay. All in favor of paying the bill
Aye.
for $1,942.50?
we're spending money.
Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Would you take care of that, Alissa?
Yes, I will.
Oh. email from Chris Rocheleau, Fitzwilliam Highway Department. Okay. And this is what Jimmy said he wanted us to get in reference to the culvert policy. I'll just read the first paragraph. The town of Fitzwilliam does not have a culvert policy in writing, but I can share the policy of the Highway Department that was discussed and agreed upon in the past with our Board of Selectmen and Gene Cuomo, the road agent. And I'm not going to go ahead and read this. It's in here if anybody would like to read it. Any questions on anything we've covered so far? Okay. Then we'll talk about the building inspector, code enforcement officer, and several complaints that we've received. But before we do that, I want to talk about the Fitzwilliam Road complaint, because that's actually different than these others. We had a complaint about an overflowing septic system behind a property on Fitzwilliam Road, a rental unit. That was last Wednesday, I believe. So correct me if I get anything wrong here, but
You're good, go.
Alissa contacted Chief Ellis, asked him to go down and look at it.
No, I contacted Barbara.
You contacted Barbara. Barbara, you asked him to look at it. Okay. He went down and he found not only, it wasn't that the septic system was overflowing, but rather there was a sump pump in there taking the sewage out of the septic system and putting it into a nearby wetlands where it would be more comfortable. So he shot some video of it and contacted DES, Dick
DeSave,
who is our contact on septic issues, and we're waiting to hear back from him.
Oh, no, it's all done.
Oh, it is done. Oh, please fill
Well,
us
it's
in.
not, it hasn't been taken care of. The problem, we tried to get the photos over on Friday to
Yeah.
Dick DeSave.
Right.
Okay, we couldn't get them to go. So this morning I came in and we worked on it. Alissa got them over. We could not send the video. The
Right.
video would not go, but the stills went. Dick DeSave has now scheduled to come down here.
Okay.
Now that he knows for sure exactly what's going on, and he'll come down and take care of it, and it is now in their hands. Okay? So we are out of it for the moment. Except we had another problem this morning at the other end of town. The White House. John.
Okay.
Okay. So Carl Hagstrom called me this morning and said that he didn't realize John was not completely upfront with him about everything. He did not realize until he talked to Dick again that this was an immediate thing to get taken care of. So Carl called John. John then went to the complainant's house, harassing her. She called me. I called David. David went over, caught John sitting in front of the cemetery down the street from her house, talking to Carl. Told John he is to stay away from her, to stay off the property. He was to have no contact with her. When I left the house tonight, I was on my way out the door. Carl called me. He called John again, because I called him after this all happened. And in 2 weeks, they are to dig a test pit. He will do it, and his son. And they found an area. They are moving. They are starting with a brand new system, because apparently the old system is not working.
No fooling.
Like, we didn't know that. And they are putting it in the fenced area, in the parking area, where all that foam that we saw, it's going to go there, apparently. So he is going to stay in touch with me. Carl said if he does not hear from him in 2 weeks, he will call me. And then
Okay.
we have to move forward on
All right. Have you discussed this with Dave Ellis?
what happened tonight coming out of the house.
I would. Here's why. Neither Dick, nor
Dick.
Carl, nor Scott has the authority to tell John that he can't go with the neighbor's property. They're dealing with septic issues.
Right.
They don't have the authority to tell him to stay away from her.
Well, he was harassing her and has been
I
right
understand.
along.
What I'm saying is they're not police officers.
No, Dave's the one that went and told.
Oh, I thought you said Dick did.
No,
I'm
David
sorry.
did.
David, oh, fine, we're all separate.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
all right.
called David, and
Right.
David went.
Okay,
No,
okay,
no,
okay,
Dick had
all right.
nothing
You
to
see
do
what my
with that.
concern was?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
all right.
no. I did it the correct way.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
All right, we're
I know
good.
you did, but,
No, we're good. Right now, we're good. I have 2 issues, one on each end of the town.
all
So
right.
I'm glad you
Well, north
give
and
me the-
south, you still got east and west to deal with.
No, no more.
Okay.
I've seen
All right,
enough.
that cleans up everything on here except for 3 complaints that we have, or 2 complaints that we have, plus the building inspector, code enforcement officer. Earlier, Tom Mattson had a lot to say about this. And everything he said is correct. I'm talking about I don't necessarily regret everything he said about the mill, but everything he said about the
Zoning ordinances?
zoning ordinance, everything else, well, what do you disagree with?
Okay, the one thing I disagree with is David cannot give them a ticket for $100. There is a $100 fee.
Yeah,
If they are taken to court and found guilty and do not clean it up,
Yeah.
then the $100 fee can be
all right,
levied at that time. It cannot be levied before that.
okay, all right, but what
Up
he
to
said,
$100 per day.
Correct.
but what
It's
he
100
said.
per day.
Let me finish. What
Okay.
he said was that we should not be chasing around doing this,
Enforcing.
and that it's a statute, and if somebody violates a statute or an ordinance, that's a police issue. And he's correct.
If it's so, okay, go ahead and then I'll.
Okay.
Go
You got-
ahead.
No, you got something to say, I'll listen to what you gotta say, and then I'll finish up.
Okay,
Okay.
zoning is enforced by selectmen. Town ordinances are enforced by police.
Okay,
That's all I had to say.
all right. Well, zoning is an ordinance.
It is, but not a town. There's town ordinances, which we have, and we have zoning ordinances. They're 2 different things.
Well, they're still ordinances.
They are, but they are classified different according to the state.
All
Okay, go
All
ahead.
right. Here's what I was trying to say.
Okay, sorry.
I agree that that the police department should, in a perfect world, if somebody's got a complaint about somebody's front yard is a mess, that they should be calling the police, and an officer would come down and say, yep, it's a mess, and they write a citation. In a perfect world. But we don't live in a perfect world.
Right.
And if we did that, then we are going to have to expand the size of the police department to cover this. And I don't think we want to do that. I think they have more important things to do than to run around telling people to clean up their yard. So at the level of a zoning ordinance, I think if somebody does not comply with orders of the select board or the code enforcement officer, then you can get the police involved. But initially, I think the way we're doing it, where we start with a letter, clean up your yard, if that doesn't work, then we escalate it. I think that is the better way to go. Now,
Give them a chance. I agree.
yeah, I mean, most of the time, you send somebody a letter about something, and their reaction is, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing something wrong
And
here, I'll
we
fix it."
got one of those
Yeah,
letters.
Right, okay, so this is what I was thinking of, that's why I have the building inspector, code enforcement officer on the agenda. We have a line item in the selectman's office for code enforcement officer. We've funded it in the past for $3,600 a year, and we can't get anybody to take the job. Nobody wants to have that hassle for that amount of money. What I'm thinking of doing, and I don't want to vote on this tonight, and I don't want to get into a big discussion about it tonight, but I want to plant the seed. I want you to think about it. And when we get into the budgeting process in a few months, then we can talk about it. I'd like to create a full-time position with benefits for a building inspector / code enforcement officer working out of this office. On the building inspector side, they would handle all of the building permits, make sure they're filled out correctly. That's when we would go to the sliding scale on the fees as well to help fund that position. They're the ones now, even though it's convenient that you could take it to the planning board, it would be a lot easier if we had somebody here who just looks at it and can make that determination for us. And it would also be a lot faster.
And have them also go in and actually inspect the building, make sure
Yeah,
it's.
exactly.
Well,
yeah.
that would be their job.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that doesn't sound like a full-time job in a small town like this. That's why we looked at having somebody do it on a as-needed basis. To do that, we have to put in a warrant article at town meeting and get approval to do that. And I think we should still do that, so that we still have that option in our pocket if we ever need it. Especially if this, what I'm proposing here, does not fly. On the code enforcement side, if there is a complaint, that person would investigate that complaint. But that person also could take a ride up West Hill Road and just keep his eyes open and not wait for a complaint if he sees something that's really egregious.
That is their job.
Yeah,
That's what the city does.
yeah.
Yes.
See,
I work for the city.
that's not our job. That's what we were talking about 2 weeks ago. We're not gonna go patrolling the town.
Well, with no code enforcement or plan.
You're right, with no code enforcement officer,
Somebody
everything falls back on
had
the
to fill
select board.
in somewhere, how, or.
Everything falls back on the select board if we don't have somebody who's assigned to do it. And we just don't have the time to do it. I put in about 15 hours a week right now as it is. I think you probably put in at least that much.
More.
Curtis puts it twice. I don't know how you do it, because he's working, we're not. But if we start getting into this complaint business and going out and inspecting properties, we're turning the selectman into a full-time job, and we don't want to do that. But I think if we not create this position, but fund and expand an existing position, that we could accomplish a lot of what we're trying to accomplish here.
And I think, in the beginning, it absolutely would be a full-time position, simply because of all the issues that have accumulated around town
Gotta go through
in
cleanup.
all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to go
And
through cleanup.
there's things like, for example, just getting a certificate of occupancy for Dollar General.
right.
I had to go over there because I had the actual certificate that was signed. Mark couldn't make it. He was going to have one of his deputies do it. They couldn't make it. Bob Hebert ended up going over there. Then there were a couple of issues that they needed to correct, so he had to go back and do a second visit. And there's a lot of coordinating. When you're dealing with people who have full-time jobs and trying to get them to do things, it gets really touchy. But if we had somebody who was working here 40 hours a week, and that's his job or her job, and I think if we put that in a full-time context with benefits, we can
We
fill
could
that,
find
we'll fill that position in a hurry.
Right.
And we'd be looking for somebody who has the experience in the building trades to be able to do those two things.
So would we have a dual licensed person, or just,
They'd almost have to be dual licensed.
Well, is there a license for a building inspector or a code enforcement?
There's gotta be something, because
Yeah.
if you go into
Don't
somebody's
say-
house and you're saying that their electric is not good or their plumbing is not good, their response back to them is saying, who are you to tell me that this is? Where's your license?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just, this is New Hampshire.
Need certification.
yes,
There's gotta
they
be some
do.
type of.
This is New Hampshire, where you don't have to have a license to be a contractor.
Correct.
So, I'm not sure you have to have maybe you do, I'm just not sure that you need a license to be a building inspector or to be a code enforcement officer. If the license is required, then of course the person we hire would have to have the licenses.
Okay.
New Hampshire doesn't have licenses. You don't have to be licensed in New Hampshire
For,
for building.
Plumbing
oh,
and
that we
electric,
know,
yeah.
but,
Pardon me?
Plumbing and electric you do.
yeah.
Yeah, but not a general contractor.
General contractor.
Yeah. So this is just something to think about between now and when we get towards the end of the budget season is when we start looking at the selectman's office. And that's when we would look at that line. The line right now just says code enforcement officer, so we would change that line to building inspector / code enforcement. We determine what salary level we think is appropriate, and then we would expand the other lines within that office to cover the health benefits and everything else.
I think you need to address one more process before you get there, because that's fast approaching. The town is not a
Can't hear you.
I think you need to address one thing, if you get thinking about that before you get too far. I don't believe our town has adopted any building codes. So you wouldn't have a code for the town, for
Right.
the inspector to enforce.
Well, they can enforce zoning regulations.
They can enforce zoning, but you're gonna have a building inspector look at a plan. So
Yeah.
you look at a plan right now, you look at a set of plans.
Right.
I could insulate a house with, let's use stairs for example. Swansea has a stair code. The riser can't be more than 7¼ inches tall. That's a code. The building inspector looks at that on a set of plans. You couldn't enforce that in the town of Troy because you haven't adopted a set of building codes. So I could build a set of stairs, whatever I want in the town of Troy, and I don't care who you put out to enforce it, they couldn't enforce it because you don't have a code to enforce.
But
And
could that not be part of the position? I
to,
mean,
to
once,
create-
we-
to work on building,
create-
setting up a code, that
So
could be,
Yes.
yeah.
now let's.
But at
let's
the
say-
same time, and Adam, I agree with you, but the thing is, if, right now, if somebody wanted a certificate of occupancy on a new house, and let's say I go out there, and if I know what you just told me, that 7.5 inches, or
But
what,
you can't
well,
enforce
that is not the rule in Detroit.
You can't enforce it.
That's right.
The only
Well,
thing-
but I can't enforce it because there's nothing to enforce.
Exactly. So there's that. So you couldn't
Right.
really. And take. I'll take.
But there's a state bill. Is there a state building code?
Very vague. It
No,
doesn't
okay.
give that. So
Alright.
it's the state building code is very vague, and that really doesn't give you much. You couldn't deny somebody a certificate of occupancy right now, except for
Fire issues.
fire issues, life safety hazards.
And that's when Bob Hebert and I took the walk through
So that's
in the vacant Dollar General. That's the stuff he was looking for.
That's the only thing.
The X's properly marked.
Exactly.
You have the fire extinguishers where they belong.
That's
That
the
kind
only
of stuff.
thing the town can
Yeah.
enforce right now would be life safety.
You're right. You're right. Live free or die. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so that would be something, a long-term project that this person would work on, is bringing all of these codes and ordinances up to date. Now, Tom was right. Carol Ogilvy is probably a person we want to,
He
Spend
made
some more
reference
time
that we
with-
don't have some of those.
hang on a
codes.
second, John. Carol Ogilvy is probably somebody we want to spend more time with, working on these ordinances. But at the same time, I think if we hire this person, they can go ahead and right away start working with building permits and working with code enforcement. But at the same time, long-term is to develop
Well,
the
but,
building codes and everything else that we need.
but in short term, I also think you need to adopt, a selectman, you need to adopt, and I'm not sure where the state is at right now.
Yeah.
But it used to be like IBC, I don't even know what level they're at now, 2009 or 2016. We need to pass that as, you need to put that in front of the town, we need to at least adopt a minimum.
Okay.
We have nothing right now. We
Right,
need to
and you know
adopt
what? I don't even know what you're talking about.
An international building code. I mean,
Okay.
you need to start somewhere
Yeah.
and adopt a very minimum. And then somebody would sit down and say, okay, they have stair treads can be 9 inches, we don't want that, let's go to 7.
Right.
They would work
Okay.
through each code.
And that's why we
tweak
need
it.
somebody to tell us that.
Yes.
Because,
Well,
like I said,
Keen,
I
right
never
from
even
the-
heard of this stuff. That's why we need somebody who knows this stuff to do this.
and is that published
All right,
anywhere?
John, what did you have to offer?
The city of Keene is, they go right to the book, they show the contractors what the code is in Keene,
Yeah,
and they have to abide by it, or they might,
or get an adjustment to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right, and that's what Adam is saying, we don't have a code.
Something could be, but that would be maybe a good place to
Start,
begin to absorb information about it.
Yeah.
On,
I mean,
format.
the town needs to, I mean, we really are, we have.
So the
to-
International Building Code
Yeah.
is sort of like the Uniform Commercial Code.
Yeah, you need to, it's, a general code gives you some general
then
guidelines that they follow.
Each state adopts it, and
Yeah, you adopt it.
Yeah.
Towns like us, you would, right now with no building inspector, would adopt the international building code. So if there's any issue, you've got something generic to fall back to look up a
Right.
contractor
Okay.
came in. Then then you get a building inspector, he sits down and goes through and says, no, I don't like this. No, windows need to be bigger. No, you need to have more smoke detectors than the international building code requires.
Right.
Then he modifies it to adapt to Troy's
Right.
to Troy's building code.
Okay.
That's how you.
All right. So I never knew all this, that just gives more ammunition to my proposal.
right, it's
Great
more
disposition.
fuel for your fire,
Yeah.
yeah.
For-
I
Let me
agree.
make one thing clear, I hate the idea of adding a full-time position to our payroll. But I think we need to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I
Because
do
if we
agree.
don't do that, then we're either gonna end up adding police officers to have them running around yelling at people to clean up their yards.
Josh Gorman, that owns right next to the Red Shed, he was a part-time building inspector, code enforcement, I should say.
And then I think you would
At the
see,
city. Yep.
once you get it, you would end up going back to a part-time position, because there's a lot of towns, I mean, Keene has a full-time, but like Swansea and those guys are, maybe Swansea got full-time now, but they had part-time for years, the guy would go and just, if you were building and you need plans, you'd go to his house and give him a set of plans, I don't know how he
Yeah.
got paid, and he would call you 2 or 3 days and approve the plans. He
And you're
would-
talking building inspector.
Yes,
And what I'm saying, that would be part-time,
yeah,
because you'd be part-time that, part-time code enforcement.
yeah.
combine them to
into a full-time
full-time.
job.
Right. And I think at first, Adam,
Oh, they're gonna be
I
very
think,
good work.
right, yes. So at first, I think, yeah, we would absolutely
Yeah,
need
there may
someone.
come a day when we might want to reduce it to part-time, but I would say that'll be a few years down the road. And we could make that clear during an interview process that there may come a time in the future. We could say that we'll guarantee you that the job will be full-time for 3 years. And I'm not even sure we can guarantee that, because budget committee could always shoot us that. All right, but that's something to think about between now and the budgeting process. Okay?
Isn't there a basic building code though? The national, like BOCA or?
Yeah.
But it can be too.
There's a few of them, I believe. So when I was in it, what the towns that didn't have anything would just adopt the international building code.
Okay.
Now that may change. Boca was out there and had some stuff. Boca gets a little more technical, a little more into defines some more stuff. You'd see a lot of smaller towns would go into it and would just have the international building code you follow.
Okay.
You know, and again, it wasn't much to follow. They're pretty big. You could do what you wanted. I mean, it's really, because it was no disrespect. It was, nobody had any idea of what they were looking at. It was checking stuff off. You know, it was, so
Right.
you used to get away with quite a bit of stuff.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on
On that? No.
that topic? Okay. Now, let's talk about the specific complaints that we already have on the table.
Can I say one thing before we get started
Sure.
on that? Tom referenced that we didn't have much in place at all whatsoever. This is the town ordinance, and this is the one I got from the state.
Right.
They're pretty close to identical, so.
Right.
We have
They are,
followed,
you're right.
we have followed suit,
Yep.
and we don't need to reinvent every, the words. and-
Right.
I just wanted to let everybody know that, because I provided that to you.
And I have them in here.
Okay, you do
I
have
got
that.
them.
Okay.
Yes.
This is from the state, okay.
All right.
I'm thinking.
Okay. But let's talk about the two complaints that we have ongoing. One is the one on Central Square, and we sent a letter out a week ago. So he has 30 days to comply or face the wrath of the select board, whatever that may amount to. But 30 days before we would take the next step in the legal process. Now, complaint on West Hill Road. That's not as clear-cut as the one on Central Square. So what I'd like to do, I've been up there and I've taken a look at it, and I have an opinion about it. But what I want to do, here's copies of the complaint for each of you. So I'm going to ask my colleagues on the select board sometime in the next week to go up and take a look at that property. Just, don't, go walk the property, but drive by, take a look at it from the road. You can see it from your car. And we'll discuss it next week. This didn't come in until Tuesday, so we didn't discuss this last week. Now, let's just talk about a process here. If somebody makes a complaint about a violation, the first step that we should take is to look at the allegations and say, well, if these allegations are true, is it a violation? And looking at this complaint, if these allegations are true, it would violate the zoning ordinance.
Right.
So that's step one. Then step number two is to actually go look at the property and say, does this property in this condition violate that ordinance? And
Right.
I have an opinion that I have formed. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I don't want to influence you, but sometime in the next 7 days, please go up there, take a look at it, and then go back and review the ordinance, or review the ordinance before you go up, and bring your opinion in next Monday night.
Okay, I don't have to review it. I think I've got them all up here. I can read
You
them.
know which
So-
one I'm talking about? Okay. All right, but even so, even if I had driven by that every day, once I got a complaint, I would want to go back and look at it in light of the complaint
Okay,
and address the
I
specific
will.
things in the complaint. And also, there's a thing on here about using the motorhome as a residence. That's a separate issue because you're not going to be able to observe that.
no.
So we'll talk about that next week too. And then we'll
Okay, now I have another question, since we're talking about complaints. Alissa's complaint and the other complaints up on Richmond Road,
Yep.
we've had since January. I think we should act on them,
Okay,
okay? Simply because we do not know how long before this nuisance ordinance may be adopted, if it's going to get adopted. And they are kind of waiting in the wings,
all right,
all right? And they've been very patient.
all right, then let's,
Was those ordinances written? I mean,
Ordinances?
those complaints written? Did
Yes.
they come in? Okay.
Oh, yes, I have active complaints here.
they're-
in the
I
folder.
just.
yeah,
I
we
couldn't remember.
we keep tabling them every week, waiting for the nuisance ordinance to come in. But I don't think
Right.
we need,
I think we should act on it, with your permission.
all right. Adam?
So,
So, before I get too far, I would like to back up a little bit in you guys' enacting, and a little bit on what Tom said. And maybe you guys don't have an opinion on this yet, and that's fine. Why wouldn't you let Dave handle these complaints? Because as a resident of town, if I filed a complaint, neighbor next to me had a pile of junk. You guys are now, I filed the complaint last Tuesday, you didn't address it this week because now you have to go look at it. So first of all, part of this, you guys are getting your stuff turned in last Thursday, we were just supposed to look at it this week before today's meeting. But now you're pushed this complaint off for another week, and then you're gonna give them 30 days. If you had Dave address this issue, Dave go out and say, hey, we got a complaint against you, you gotta clean this mess up, and the person's gonna go, oh geez, I didn't realize that.
You're right, but, well, we're not pushing it off another week. Remember, this complaint came in after last week's meeting.
Correct, but your rules of the selectmen say if it's submitted by Thursday night, you guys will have done all the homework for tonight's meeting, that complaint should have been addressed.
Good point, yeah.
And it wasn't addressed, and I'm not picking on you guys, I'm just saying that, in fairness to the person that made that complaint, now we've got another
Yeah.
week, they've gotta wait for the
Yeah,
selectmen.
that Thursday business actually had to do with the gender request forms, so
Yeah,
it should apply to everything.
yeah. Not that-
But again,
Yeah,
it-
but I'm just saying why,
Yeah.
Dave would, being a person that made a complaint, kinda had to wait till the person waited till the
Yeah.
29th day to solve the issue.
Yeah,
If maybe if we had law enforcement in this, they would, at
Well-
least the person who made the complaint would get a little like, Dave could communicate with you guys or them and say, hey, they are addressing it, they're gonna address it,
Yeah.
start working on this week.
you're right, but it's like we said earlier, if we start putting all of this stuff on the police, we're gonna end up having to hire additional police officers.
But, you say that, but I also watched our officers stand out here on the common and do details.
Yeah.
Or, I hate to say it, sitting here with their feet up on the desk, shooting the breeze, bugging Alissa. Our officers and I don't know if they're bugging Alissa, but I've seen our officers plenty of times, they can address 3 or 4 complaints.
When they're on a detail, that's overtime, paid for by the Eversource or.
Exactly. A
Yeah.
lot of towns don't have detail. A lot of towns do not let their officers do details because there's town work to be done.
Okay.
But that's our policy.
Well, if we didn't let them do details, let's say they're working a 40-hour week, those details are in addition to the 40 hours.
No, you get Dave and Nick standing out here doing details all week long. You can't tell me Dave's doing his 40 hours and doing a detail. He's just
Look
standing out
at
here.
his, if you saw his timesheet, yeah. He's doing 40 hours. Of course, he's
So-
salaried. He's salaried, it's a different story, right?
Yeah.
But police officers who are doing details are doing those in addition to their regularly scheduled shifts.
Okay.
So if we cut back.
I will trust that.
All right, if we cut back on the details, they would not have any more time during their regular.
Well, it doesn't,
schedule.
if that's the case, if they're, if
Yeah.
Dave and Nick are not truly working, not supposed to be on the payroll from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and they're on a detail, then that's fine.
Yeah.
I thought Dave
Well, that's
and
the way it's
Nick-
supposed to be.
I thought Dave and Nick were on work Monday through Friday, 7 to 3.
Well, they wouldn't be on the clock for the town and on a detail at the same time.
You may want to make that clear then, because a lot of people are getting that opinion.
Well,
Especially because they've been doing deals right here the last couple of weeks, Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, so.
all right.
But, so, and I'll take it, so if that's the case, then if they are truly off, then
That's the way it should be. What should happen is if, let's say if Nick is out here from 7 to 3, then he should be off the town payroll for that day. Is that the way it works?
You have to look at the time cards.
Okay. Well, I don't have his time card.
I can't for it. It's in that pile.
Oh, okay, all right. No, and you're right, that's the way it should be. But I think sometimes when we're talking about complaints, we're not talking about what we normally think of as crime. I think if it's a zoning issue or a town ordinance issue, I don't see a problem with us handling the very lowest level of that investigation and writing a letter and saying, clean up your mess. And if you don't, we escalate it.
Just my thing.
And when we escalate it, that's when either the police or the courts get involved, depending on the nature of it. Like we did with the septic issue down on Fitzwilliam Road. You know, we didn't wait.
Yeah.
That's a septic issue is different because there's a public health issue, so there's no 30 days on that.
All I was getting at is we just speed them up.
I can't hear it.
I was just getting at speed them up. I was the person that had to wait for somebody to
I know.
go right to the extent of the
Yeah.
30 days.
And now John's going through that.
So I was,
Well, they didn't, the last time it was done, they waited till the last day to do anything.
But I'm sure that's what everybody does.
Just to be,
Why, yes,
Yeah.
to
very,
be an
and
irritation.
I was just looking at it from the sense of speeding it up a little bit.
Yeah, well, once if we get the building inspector / code enforcement officer on board,
Yeah.
we may be able to tighten that up.
and we do not need to give them 30 days. According to the zoning ordinances,
Yeah.
we don't have to give them
You're
any
right.
time at all.
You're right, we're just doing that because, like we say, in many cases, people are not aware that they're doing something wrong, and if it's, we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and you want to give them some time to clean up the mess. But if you do it for one, you gotta do it for all.
Correct.
We can't say, well, all right, we're gonna give the guy next to you 30 days, but the guy you're talking about is only gonna get 72 hours.
You know, as far as the trail, I don't nearly care as much that he lives in it as much as the mess that's all the way around it.
There's a setback issue there too.
Well, there's 180 days loophole.
That's a separate, we're gonna address that. But also where it's located, there may be a setback issue.
Because that trailer was never intended to be an RV. It never moved
Right,
an inch.
right.
Didn't have an engine when it got there, I guess.
Right. Well,
It was just dragged off a wrecker. Clunk.
yeah.
You know,
Right,
which
but
stove
where it
installed.
sits, but what I'm saying though is where it sits, I think it violates setback requirements. And I shouldn't be influencing you. but-
No, I've seen it.
Yeah, okay.
I've been up there.
Okay. All right, because it should be, how far is it, 35 feet or something like that from the rural district?
Doesn't it depend on what it is?
I think it was something like that.
No,
I
it's a
think
structure, it's
I
a
have
rural
it here,
district.
actually.
Well, it's not a
35
structure.
feet front setback.
Yeah, it's
side
not a
and rear.
structure.
It's not a structure, but it's being used as an auxiliary living unit, not an accessory apartment, but an accessory dwelling unit.
ADU.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, it's still a structure.
So, well, take a look at and determine to the best of your estimating abilities how far back it is from the road and whether or not it violates setback requirements.
About, there we go. Put your 2 feet together, you got it.
Can't go by the photos, so you gotta see it. All right. Anything else on that issue?
No, all I'd like to know is, if and when he could send a letter, when the last day for his
Okay.
goal.
Well, we'd be signing what we'll do is we're gonna look at it over the next 7 days. I'll prepare a letter between now and next week. And based on my interpretation of it.
Okay.
And we'll see what you two come back with. If you disagree with me, then maybe we have to chuck that letter out and rewrite it. If you agree with me, then the letter will
Then
be
we'll
signed
be
next
prepared.
week.
Okay.
Okay? But I'm not gonna tell you what I put in the letter.
Don't, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. Let me just see here.
Real quick on you're asking if the police officers,
Yep.
you're correct. If they're working through the town, the additional time frame is when they're off duty. So according to, and apparently Dave was on vacation last week, or that time frame, 40 hours?
No, his gets signed by the select board. His
Oh.
is over here.
Yeah, that's why I don't see Nick's, I only see Dave's.
Next.
6:15 Saturday morning. getting set up for the Dollar General grand opening.
Okay, here's David's 58 hours.
Yeah. And he's got his details listed here separately.
Oh, Masick was on vacation. I apologize.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right. You know, I think at least 5 times tonight I've said, in a perfect world, this or that. So, but unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world, so we make imperfect decisions
No, we
on how to
don't.
handle less than perfect situations. We do the best we can. Barbara, do you have anything else for us tonight?
No, we took care of all the poop situations, north and south.
Because you're in charge of Poop Squad.
Yes. So I
That's,
think,
I should, instead of asking you to handle the rake issue, it should have been Barbara. 'Cause she
no, I said,
She handles septic issues. Anything dealing with poop is hers.
no, I said today, what did I
Can you make
say
a motion
today?
for that?
I am done with,
Septic squad.
I am done.
Okay.
Okay, the only other thing, and I think we talked about it before, were the key codes. in
The what?
The key codes in the doors.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of all taken care of. David and
OBD,
I.
yeah.
Yeah, David and I will take care of it. And that's it. I'm done.
Okay. Curtis, anything else?
Yes. Bob Norton dropped us off with me when he dropped my kids off from the summer camp. But the Monadnock Reno School District use of the facility form for roller skating. I guess we turned it in here. You have to sign a piece of paper saying it's okay to authorize for insurance and stuff like that.
What's it about?
For roller skating this
Yeah.
coming year.
At school?
Oh, at the school?
At the
Oh,
school.
okay, all right.
And we got the dates. Before we got that scheduled,
Yeah.
so if you can also put that on the calendar if we get this approved.
Well,
from the
wait,
school.
yeah, right. Let's do that first, then we'll
Yeah.
add it.
Yeah, just
But I
so
guess
you-
I'm supposed to hand this paperwork off to you. I guess you gotta sign
guess.
one spot, and I guess you.
Why don't you give it to Alissa? She'll put it on the agenda for next
do
week
your
and
thing.
we'll take care of it.
So right there.
How's that?
Okay, that'll work.
And then she
Okay.
can give me a
Yeah.
copy to put on the website.
And then the only other thing is I'm on military starting this Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, down at Fort Dix. So I want to exercise the right to do a teleconference for the next 2 meetings.
Okay.
So I just
You have
know-
speakerphone, right, Alyssa?
Yes, we do.
You do? Okay. We don't have Skype or anything like that in there.
Okay, that's fine as long as I can.
It'll be voice. That'll be fine.
Yep, voice in, and any information that we get, can you just email it to me? I'll have access to the msn.com email, the one I normally use. But yeah, just so I can still keep up what's going on.
Okay. So,
Or he could just listen to the tape.
no.
Okay?
All right, so let's do this. You're gonna be using your cell phone?
Yes.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll call you about 6:25
Okay.
so that you can enjoy the meeting.
Okay.
If I was at Fort Dix for the week, I would not be doing this.
Well, I didn't want
Not
to
that
miss
Fort
anything.
Dix is a great place. But
I just don't want to miss anything, and
Yeah.
I want to stay involved and everything. So
I understand. Okay.
And it's the 2 weeks. I'll be back on the 15th.
All right.
so-
That'd be the first time we've done that.
So, and it is legal. I did look it up. To
Oh,
find out.
yeah. that's legal.
Yeah, it is.
Only one person can be missing to do it. So if we had 2 people that were missing, we'd actually have to cancel it.
Only one out of this.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a quorum.
You have to have a quorum physically present. Yeah.
Physically present. So
Okay.
that'll work.
All right. Anything else, Curtis?
That's all I have.
Okay. Adam, anything else? Debbie? Alyssa?
No, I'm good.
John?
No, thank you for
All
your time.
You're welcome. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 7:49 p.m.